Flashpoint Campaigns is a high-intensity Cold War era ground combat game. You are in command of forces either with NATO or the Warsaw Pact in 1989. You command a total force from a strong battalion up to a reinforced regiment. And you play on a 15 by 20 kilometer map for a battle lasting 4 to 10 hours. Although given the casualty rates, it tends to be closer to 4. What's special about the game is that it's WeGo. So each side puts in their orders, and then you push the button and simultaneous resolution starts. With full fog of war on, you don't see too quickly just what's happening, so you have to guess and anticipate and all those wonderful things we do. Then as units become revealed, you start to engage. The turn lengths for the players are not the same length. You can have separate turn lengths, and then the computer will stop and it's the turn of NATO or the turn of Warsaw Pact. And that models the Boyd cycle, the OODA loop, orient, observe, orient, decide, act. And so when your forces are in good shape, they're well organized, you haven't stressed them, you'll have a turn length of about 15 minutes. As your things start to unravel and you take casualties, units get pushed hard, they're moving all over the place, they'll become disorganized and your OODA loop will stretch out. You might end up being 20, 25, 30-minute turns. If you're fighting a 5-hour battle, say, you're losing your grip. You are being outmaneuvered by the enemy if you let things get out of hand. And what you do to respond is to rest your forces a little bit, reorganizing them a little bit, let them catch up, and then your turn length will start to shorten again, and you'll start to get a grip again on the battle. That's kind of the most interesting dynamic. But there's a host of other stuff going on. We model every tank and squad and artillery tube, aircraft, down to individual units. A typical counter in the game, typical subunit in the game might be 2 to 14 of these subunits. And then the counter is made up of several of these subunits in turn, and as a commander of this overall force, you might have 40 to 100 of these units. So the scale of the game, we model right down to individual tanks and aircraft and attack helicopters. We roll those together into subunits, and the subunits into unit counters, which you see on the map. And as the overall commander, you might have anywhere from 40 to 100 plus units. The map itself is 15 by 20 kilometers, typically, although they can get bigger. And you play. You play for victory locations. You try to inflict casualties. That war never happened, but it would have been extremely high intensity. They only had a 2-week window or so to achieve dominance on the battlefield, or they would have gone nuclear. So there's no sitting around, there's no waiting for the perfect moment. You have to act, and act fast on either side. The game itself comes with 3 tutorials, 25 standalone scenarios, and 4 campaigns, which obviously are linked scenarios, which between them have another 18 scenarios in them. Because it's Cold War, we also model electronic warfare. There's chemical weapons, there's even nuclear weapons towards the end, tactical nuclear weapons, and a host of things that kind of give that flavor of that era. The game ships with the scenario editor and the data files. Everything's unlocked, and if you want to make your own scenarios, go right ahead. Maps are a little harder to make, but we ship with 45 maps, so I think you'll find something in there that you can use. And if you really want to make maps, come talk to us, because we'll bring you on the team to make maps. The On-Target Simulations team has 5 core members. Between the 5 of us, I think we have 62 years in on working on this project. 2 of us have prior military experience, which really, really helps. 4 of the 5 are developers. All of us have been, war gamers since prehistory. In addition to that group, we have another 6 contributors, and they make maps and scenarios, and they do a lot of the testing. They make a lot of the artwork and the surrounding briefings. They're helping out with documentation. Beyond them, we have another dozen, I would say, sort of core fanatical beta testers. Again, a lot of military service in their background, and they have lots of quality of life improvements. UI down to you've got the wrong model of rifle for this particular unit. Perfect. We love incorporating feedback like that. And even more distantly, we get a lot of email from our customers, and they've served. And they will say, there's a little quality of life here. There's a little adjustment you can make there. And with the old game, Red Storm, we incorporated hundreds of those suggestions. There are literally hundreds of people out there who can point to some aspect of that game and say, yeah, I contributed that. I was a little part of that. And that's starting up again with Southern Storm. And if we get a good suggestion and we can do it, we will put it in. It's a big part of the team effort in our eyes. For 13 plus years now, a group has been putting on command post exercises, CPXs, at Origins. And the premise of it is that you get a group of players and they role model the staff all on one side of a force. And then it's played out through a war game to see what happens. That's the overview. So we get, say, 5 to 10 people. They are the staff, including the commanding officer. But you have the XO, Intel, Fires, Operations, Aviation. All these roles are split up. Take 10 people off the street and tell them, okay, you're role-playing. They will have no idea what to do. So we teach them the U.S. Army Military Decision-Making Process, MDMP. And we'll spend an hour and we'll say, here's how you as a group of staff work together. Here's the structure. We then give them a scenario from Flashpoint. We put it up on the screens. It would say, you as a staff are going to plan out what the blue side is going to do, and you have an hour. And they will apply what they've just learned and create a plan. And typically it's to take their forces, advance the length of the map, and set up a bridgehead across a river on the far side. And they're told that the opposition will be light and you can just scatter it as you advance. Having prepared the plans and chosen between the alternative courses of actions, they will then come to us and we'll put all those orders and plans into the computer and start the scenario. And then, because it's played with full fog of war, they go back to planning. They don't really know where the enemy is, so they have to come up with alternative contingencies. And they're in fact very busy, very engaged. But the intel guy keeps an eye on the screen, and as red units start to pop up, he calls it out, and between them, they say, oh, here's how it fits into this course of action and not that one. What they're doing is exercising a series of decision points. Scenario is crafted again to make a series of decisions based on very limited information and then modify them as the real information comes to light, right when it's hanging by a thread. So point of maximum stress, but it's not been won or lost one way or the other. By now about 4 or 5 hours has gone by. And we then do a debrief. And everybody talks about their role and what they learned about it, both the specific specialty, but also the business of cooperating as a staff, because it's exciting. There are lots of things that can go wrong. And if the exercise is well designed, a lot of things will have gone wrong, but then they'll figure it out and they will be better at it the next time around. So the whole thing wraps up after about 6 hours. Flashpoint's used as the mechanism for playing this out and playing the red side. And then it has a host of information screens that you can use to do the after action report later. And we get a lot of people coming back, very engaging, very intense. And year after year, we keep seeing the same people coming back to play it yet again. The next iteration of Flashpoint Campaigns Central Storm will have another 4 new scenarios, standalone scenarios. 2 of them are Canadian, the 4th Canadian Mechanized Brigade, and 2 are French, which are a little underrepresented still in the game. There's more beyond that, but that's what we're doing to sweeten the deal right now. Content-wise, the thing we're excited about, and this goes back to our feature development, is that we finally, after 10 years or more, we finally added in the ability to transport troops by helicopter. We have helicopter transport. Should we need it, also truck transport. But that lets us model now the air mobile attacks, the air assaults. Both sides had considerable high quality forces devoted to nothing but making landings in the enemy rear. Certainly the Warsaw Pact had large assault brigades, air assault brigades, to go into NATO's rear and seize bridges and critical things like that. That's a big part of the flavor of that hypothetical campaign, and we weren't able really to represent it properly until now. So when our next DLC comes out, you will see air mobile assault scenarios. In the Southern Storm game, it will be turned on shortly after you see this video, and those who dive into the scenario editor will be able to start adding it in, and we will bring out additional scenarios now that start to bring that into the Southern Storm game as well. So air assault, the whole Ride of the Valkyries thing, we're going to be putting that in. If you look at the forces on the ground going down from north to south in Germany, there were 9 corps or corps equivalents for NATO. When we did Red Storm, we kind of cherry-picked the middle 2/3 of that line and had a variety of scenarios. With Southern Storm, we wanted to change things up a bit, have different terrain, much rougher, rockier, mountainous terrain. So we went to the southern end of the line and did the 2 NATO corps at that end, US 7th Corps and the West German 2nd Corps. We then wanted to do a different stretch of the line, and we looked at the center, and right where the West German 3rd Corps and north of it the Belgian Corps are in the line, covers the capital city of Bonn. And there's not a lot of depth to that line. There isn't anywhere really, but that was a particularly important sector to hold and was sure to generate some desperate combat. The forces are not plentiful there for NATO, so they really have to be careful. They have to play a really good positional battle, or they'll just get unhinged and swept away and Bonn will fall. So that is going to be the area that we're going to concentrate on next. I mentioned air mobile forces and helicopter transport, and this DLC will feature a complete scenario just on that. And many of the other scenarios will start to add in elements of this as well. Because you're playing in full fog of war, getting eyes on and spotters in, stay behind teams, special forces, anything that can observe the enemy in his rear, do artillery targeting, transforms the game. It changes everything. And this will make this feasible now. So we're very excited about this. One of our core guys who's played this game forever says this is the best thing we've done in ages. It's a whole new game practically just with this added in. So that's Central Storm. In terms of assets, we've got the original 8 nations, and we're adding in Belgium, obviously. We have 19 maps so far. We've got 15 standalone scenarios and 3 campaigns with a total of 16 scenarios between them. All that just rolls into the Southern Storm game and just shows up and plays right along beside it. So as I described, there were 9 corps, NATO corps, effectively along the front. Central Storm got another 2, so that leaves 5. If you look at the map, it's really obvious we haven't really covered Fulda Gap yet. The US 5th Corps was there, and they had the shallowest front of anybody. So yes, it's reasonable to assume that we're going to do a really good Fulda Gap game, and that's in the pipeline. That leaves the northern flank. So I'm thinking the Netherlands, on the Rhine, there's another West German Corps, and also the Danes just to the north of that. And so something along the line of a northern storm might well be in the works. When those 4 are done, we'll have covered the entire inter-German border. Possibly someday, there were considerable assets earmarked for Norway, US Marine Corps units, Royal Commandos of the UK Army, all kinds of possibilities opening up there as well for a different kind of campaign yet again. So those are the kinds of things we're thinking of at this point. Beyond that, there's still yet more possibilities, but yeah, it'd be a little premature to talk about those at this time.